to what we've already given up. It's like we're pacing around the obvious. Separate lives, different stories, 2 out of 4 of us are all fed up. Well, you and I play with fire, but don't say nothing, or we're both busted. We'll get what's coming after you. No, don't say nothing, or bon voyage to rendezvous. Trade fights for better views. We both need something new. Maybe we should just tell them.
Hello, hive-minded readers, and welcome to the Books and the Bees podcast. Just like bees play a crucial role in pollinating flowers and sustaining life, books pollinate minds and nurture the soul. We see the connection between the two, the delicate dance of ideas and stories that enrich our lives.
I'm Hailey.
And I'm Cody.
Welcome to our podcast.
Hailey!
Hello!
Hello! Episode 10.
Yes.
We are
Episode
10 episodes in.
I know. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It's crazy. We've been doing this for 10 weeks.
I know. That's kind of crazy too.
It is. It feels simultaneously like it's been not very long, but also I'm so used to the podcast being on Wednesday evenings, like it's just completely carved out in my schedule. So it's like we've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 episodes.
10 episodes. And here we are.
We out here.
Yep. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. For our listeners, I recently got a puppy. If you would like to see said puppy, I do post them occasionally on the Bookstagram. And so, you know, if you want to see puppy posts, just say.
You should post one on the podcast page too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will. I'll post. His name's Wrexham, and like the soccer team, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. McElhenney, is that his last name?
I don't know.
I think that's his last name. He's one of the guys in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
He does like a really cool dance scene in one of the episodes. Anyways, yeah. Him and Ryan Reynolds like purchased the soccer team, and then they did like a Hulu documentary on it. There's 2 seasons, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a UK, I think it's a Welsh team. But yeah, so we named him Wrexham, Wrexham. And he's a little Akita puppy, and he is so cute. And he's brown, and he's like the brownish, like light brown cinnamon color with little white socks. And
he is very cute.
He is very cute. And he is slowly getting used to being in his kennel at night, because we kennel all of our dogs at nighttime so they don't, get into stuff while we're asleep. And it's always a toss-up, because like so we have a Doberman and we have another Akita, and with our Doberman, he was an absolute nightmare to kennel train, and at night he would just scream for like, I shit you not, hours. And I eventually at one point had to like sleep with him on the couch, because it was just the easiest that way. And then eventually he like got used to it. But with him, he was awful. And then like with our other Akita, she was really good almost instantly got used to the kennel. She's like, oh, okay, this is fine. But with Wrexham, he's been actually doing a lot better. He's kind of in between. It takes him like a few minutes, like 5, 10, 15 minutes to get like settled, and he'll cry bloody murder
Oh, no.
and howl. I've literally never heard a dog howl while they're eating, because my husband like fed him in the kennel to kind of like get him used to being in the kennel. And I've literally never heard a dog scream while they were eating. It's the weirdest. I was like, are you okay? But yeah, he's slowly like getting used to being in the kennel and sleeping like a normal dog, because he's like a puppy, so he sleeps all the time. But then when we want him to sleep, he's like, oh no, I'm going to be awake. But yeah, so we're just like sleep deprived dog parents right now.
Oh my
So yeah.
gosh. Yeah. We haven't had new animals in a while. We have two cats, Luna and Oreo, and they're both, I think Oreo is 8 and Luna's
Oh
7. So
wow.
we've had them for a while, and I really want a dog, but
Hmm.
the cats I don't think would take well to it. And we're in an
Yeah.
apartment that's not like incredibly big, and it just isn't in the cards right now. But eventually we'll hopefully get a dog. But yeah, but I love puppies and kittens. They're just so cute, and
They're so cute.
yeah, little
Yeah,
babies.
I know. Yeah, we have the three dogs and a cat, and we've always like wanted a bunch of dogs. So like, but I think three is a very like that's our max.
Yeah, that's a good number.
Yeah, yeah. And our cat's he's like 20 some pounds. He's a very large cat. So like, and I think he's like 7 this year. So he's like fully integrated, and he's like, yeah, this is just like my house. The dogs are just living in it. He was our first like animal together because like my husband had his dog when we got together, and then uh we like I don't know if you've seen this lately. Sorry, this is so tangenty, but there's this thing on like TikTok, this phrase called like the cat distribution system, where like people who like because like you never like go out and be like, okay, I'm gonna go get a cat. It's like you just kind of happen upon cats,
Yes,
and like
that's true.
that's why so that's why they call it like the cat distribution system because you because you're like being distributed your cat, and so yeah, our our cat was one of those like happenstance. We found him in my neighbor's garage. Stray cat had a litter, and
Mm.
we yeah, it was like raining and super like I don't know, it was like September or something, and we were like home visiting my parents, and we like heard this meowing, and we were like, what is, and then just like a whole like litter of kittens that were abandoned by their mom, and we were like, well, shit. So my mom was like, well, guess we're taking care of some kittens. And then
Oh,
we got one, and then my mom took one of the siblings, and then we found other people to take the other ones, but
yeah,
yeah.
that's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, our cats, Oreo is well, they're both from you know the wild, I guess, and Oreo has one eye because he had a piece of cheatgrass stuck in it, and it was
Oh.
super infected when we found him. So the vet took it out and had to remove the eye because it was just completely ruined. And then Luna came from my aunt who passed away, and she was a dumpster kitty that they found somewhere in like a landfill in Oregon, I think. And
Wow.
she was only 6 weeks old or so when my aunt
Oh,
passed. And so we took her um, to help relieve my grandparents. And so, yeah, cats, they just show up somehow.
they do. They show up and they're like, oh, now you have a cat.
Now you have a cat.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they're great. I love cats.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Animals in general, they're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm both a cat and a dog person.
Yeah, for sure.
Show. Show. That's not a word. I don't know what I just said. But are we ready to get into what we're reading?
Yeah, let's get into what we're reading. What are you reading, Cody?
Uh, so I know we're a book podcast, and I have to admit that I have not been reading very much because a certain game has had an update, Stardew Valley, for those of us who are partaking in the do, as I call it, has been absorbing my time. I love Stardew Valley. It's such a fun game. An update came out. I've been playing it like before the update came out. I was playing it. Now that the update's out, I've been playing it. So it's been not a lot of reading, but I am working on a book called Welcome to the Hyunam-Dong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-Reum. I think that's how you pronounce both the name of the book and the author. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. And it's translated by Shanna. And I have had this book. It came out this year. It came out like mid-February, I think. It's been my list. I love cozy bookshop books, and that's exactly what this is. It's about a young gal who starts a bookshop in South Korea. Um, wait, is it North Korea? No, it can't be North Korea. It has to be South Korea.
Probably South Korea.
It's in Korea, okay? And uh, it's a really great book. It's very cozy. It's very much like a sip tea and read a little bit of the book. There's like no angst at all in the story. It's very easy flowing. And that's kind of made it be a little bit of a slower read for me because I'm just enjoying the book. I don't want to like speed through and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and every chapter kind of stands out on its own. I think you could probably read the chapters out of order if you wanted to. I mean, there is some definite like underlining plot, but they're very much independent of each other in a lot of ways, and the writing is just very nice and it's very relaxing. The cover art is beautiful. It's like this dark blue purple, and it's just a really great book. I've been enjoying it, and it's great. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really nice. I love a cozy book. I haven't read a cozy book in a hot minute though.
Yeah, this one, if I had to like give it a con, it's a little too cozy. It's like
Mm.
there's like nothing happening plot wise. Like it's just super casual. Um, but I've definitely enjoyed it. There's no spice at all. There's no honey rating. There is like a romance I think happening, but I don't think it's going to be like on the spice rating at all. It's just going to be very casual. And
Yeah.
um, I know I talked about it last week, so I'll mention it. But I was going to start The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest, but I read the first page and it didn't grab me, not from any like fault of the book. I definitely think I'm going to read the book. I'm just not
Mm-hmm.
in like a romancy kind of mood right now. Very much
Mm-hmm.
a mood reader. Like I have to have the genre that fits the mood I'm in, and I'm kind of in like even the cozy book is not quite the mood I'm hitting for. I'm actually kind of itching for some sci-fi books, and I have a couple on my wait list that I'm gonna read after I finish the cozy book. So didn't do Partner Plot, but I definitely will in the future, and I'm sure I'll bring it up when I get to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are on it once you've read it.
Have you
Because
started it
it's,
yet?
I literally have read like the first page.
Oh, so we've
And
read
that's
like the same amount.
yeah, yeah. I literally like opened it, read it, and then was like, okay, I have other stuff I need to like get done today, and I
that's
just
that's really funny.
I was like, I'll get into it though, and I'm currently sampling it. I don't know if I mentioned in the last episode, but like iBooks lets you sample books um, before you read them, and so usually if like I'm in between like paychecks, or if I'm like don't have it budgeted out for the week, and I'll
Mhm.
wait until I do have it, like for the next week's budget or the next month's budget or whatever. When I go on like a big book splurge, I tend not to like just randomly buy books. I say that, which is such a lie, because I literally just bought like two books um yesterday while I was out grocery shopping. But that's just because I was looking for other books that I really wanted, couldn't find them, and I was like, well, I'm already here, so I'll just freaking buy these books because they look interesting. But
Yes.
but yeah, so it's in my sample. I'm like reading it like up to however many pages it lets you read as the sample, and then I'm obviously gonna buy it because I want to freaking read it. Like I'm gonna buy it regardless. So,
Right.
and I've been trying to find it like in a physical copy, and I literally cannot find it anywhere. I've been to local bookstores, I've been to Target, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart, and none of them have had it in stock. It's ridiculous.
Wow. That's weird.
I know. So, um, yeah, but yeah, I'll be really interested to know what your thoughts are on it once you do
Yeah.
read it. But that other book does sound really cozy, and sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's nice to just like take a break.
Yeah, that's true. I have been reading a lot of like intense books, and I feel like I'm about to dive into some intense books. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's a good like palate cleanser for sure. Do you know
Yeah.
what book we need to start reading?
Hmm.
Um, Ice Planet Barbarians,
Oh yeah, I'm so excited for that.
because next week the episode will drop in April.
Oh shit,
So we
I gotta
might have
start
to
that then.
we might have to starting that book.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, we definitely need to start that then.
Woo! Let's go. I'm excited for it.
Hell yeah. Yes, I'm so excited.
You know what? I
I've
might start it.
been
I might start it tonight. Let's see.
ah,
Maybe.
yeah, I've been itching. I've been
Me
itching to
too.
freaking start
Me
it. It's
too.
been sitting on my shelf just like staring at me.
Let's just start it then. Let's just
Okay,
do it. Yeah.
cool.
Hey, listeners, start reading Ice Planet
Yeah,
Barbarians
start
right
reading.
now.
Start your engines. Start
Okay.
your brain.
Yeah, start it up. Start it up. Haley, what are you reading?
I'm reading. Well, I think I kind of just said that I'm starting to get into partner plot, literally like just. But so I took a couple days off though, and I read literally so many. Well, I say so many. I read like two, three books. Finished three books. Um,
That's a lot.
not. Yeah,
I mean, that's good. Two in a
yeah,
2 to 3 in a week. I mean, that's really good.
yeah. It's. I mean, well, okay. So my first book, I'll just get into it. The first book that I think I mentioned it last episode that I was reading it, is The Comeback, by Lily Chu. And it was amazing. It was a little slow, like the first to get into like the first part. Like once I actually sat down and like actually focused on the book though, it was like I couldn't step away from the book. I mean, like lunch break, after work, while I was like right before bed. I mean, I was reading it like constantly. And then like on my first day off, that's like all I did in the morning was just like read through the book. And so a little while ago I bought like a journal so I could like annotate books outside of my books so I wasn't writing in them. And I wrote so much down on like the book, like it freaking made there was like a part in it, and I won't get it like spoiler or anything, but there was like a section of the book towards the end where there was like some email correspondence between the two main characters, and it straight up made me cry. I was like sitting just like crying as I was reading it. I was like, oh my god, this is so sweet. Oh, just a fantastic book.
Oh,
Yeah, it's so the main character, um and she's a lawyer, and she's like the love story is kind of happenstance, um and it's very what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't know. It's just a very sweet romance. Definitely like a lot. It's a thicker romance book. It's not like a like, oh, I'll lay by the pool and read this in like a few hours, at least for me anyways.
hmm.
Um it had quite a bit of depth. There was a few times where I was like feeling so paralleled with the character and their development, and just kind of like their outlook on life and like their what was happening to them. I was like, holy crap, like this is giving me a whole new perspective. But yeah, it was such a good book, like just an amazing book. And I
I
was
think I'm gonna
gonna
read it. I think I'm gonna read that book. It sounds
it,
really good.
so, and I don't remember if I mentioned this, but literally like a gal in Barnes and Noble like straight up just like recommended it to me. She's like, my book club just finished reading this, you should get this
Oh,
one. And I was
that's so
like,
cool.
okay, I'll get it. And then I grabbed it and I was like so excited to read it. And then I finally sat down. I was just, oh my god, it was so good. But yeah, and I don't know if I should give a synopsis on it, but it was um
I mean, you gave a pretty good summary. Just
okay, yeah.
yeah,
But
reading
yeah, and then
synops, reading synops. How do you say synopsis plural? Synopsi.
synopses.
Reading synopses. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
is
that
really
sounds right.
hard.
It is. It's so hard. Um. Oh, and I was gonna say, so there was like some off the page spice. There was
Mm,
some like inferred spicy scenes, but not too crazy. If I had to put it on the honey scale, it would I'd probably put like more nectar nuzzly. I'm not really sure because it wasn't no spice, and there's definitely like romance kissing that sort of thing, but there wasn't anything like explicit, you
okay.
know. And then the second book that I read was Fumbled by Alexa Martin. It was an NFL sports romance. Amazing. I love the way she writes. Um, it was a Very good book. I say the word wholesome, like obviously like the characters had struggles and stuff, but it was just like such a sweet um story that it almost made me feel like I was like watching like a romance movie, and
Hmm.
you know, because it was one of those books where like you want to like reach into the book and like smack the character silly or like shake them and be like, what's wrong with, you know, like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just such a good book, and I highly recommend it. If our listeners haven't read it before, I'd probably put it a Beekeeper's Passion, leaning into a hunting frenzy. There was some
Oh,
spicy scenes, but nothing like explicit. Like it wasn't rated R, but it was definitely rated like mature, like I would say.
adult.
So yeah, definitely adult.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the third book that I read was The Cupcake Cottage by Jean Oram, and it was a little bit slow, but overall very sweet romance. If you want like a type of book that you just want to like go read by the pool, or maybe you just like have some spare time, you want to read a nice romance, I would recommend that for that kind of situation. Zero Spice, that was one thing that kind of threw me. I was like, oh man.
Mm, gotta have
But
that spice.
yeah, yeah. For me, I like spice in my romance, but not everyone enjoys that.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true.
but yeah.
Cool. Well,
Hmm.
all that sounds really good. I'm definitely going to check out The Comeback. It sounds really good.
So good.
Um, and The Fumbled also sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, it was really good. And I guess the author is an I don't know how to phrase this, like a ex football star's wife, ex NFL football player's wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. So she like knows like
Hmm.
the deets of being with an NFL player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
good. I like that.
it was really good. Yeah.
Authentic.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, Great. Well, I think we're both reading good books.
Hmm.
Singular book for me, many
Yeah.
books for Haley.
Yeah.
But I have like a lot of holds that keep coming up on my Libby.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I really got to get through these because I just keep pushing them off. So I'm probably going to try to read quite a bit over the weekend.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. Yeah. As far as beekeeping goes, we already mentioned that we're going to start reading Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. So get that
Mhm.
if you haven't. We will talk about it on our first week in April.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know. I guess we don't know if we're going to be spoilery or not on that episode, but maybe we should just
Yeah.
say not spoilery
Yeah.
for the first episode because we won't
Yeah.
be done with it. I don't think, will we?
No,
Or
I'll
maybe.
probably take my time because I definitely want to like annotate it a little bit more and like write down my thoughts as I go through it, so that way I can have something to reference. So.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll say not spoilery for the first episode of April, but get it if you
Mhm.
can.
Mhm.
We're both really excited for it. I'm definitely excited for it. It's gonna be good.
Yes.
It's gonna be good.
Absolutely.
And then we last week we talked about the Libbies, and one of the things that came up was we didn't know how the winners were selected. And if you
Mhm.
remember, in the romance category, Fourth Wing, no, sorry, the fantasy category, uh, Fourth Wing won,
Mhm.
and in the romantasy category, Iron Flame won. And so we did a little bit of digging off of the mic, and I'm reading straight from the website. The inaugural Libby Book Awards honor public librarians' best books of 2023 in 17 different categories, nominated by an expert librarian panel and voted on by more than 1,700 librarians. The Libby Awards are
Wow.
sponsored by Libby, the library reading app, which is used by millions of readers in public libraries across North America. So it was librarian panel that chose the finalists, and it was voted on a bunch of librarians on who won and
Wow.
who deserved to win.
Huh. That's so
So
crazy.
yeah,
Oh, that's cool though.
I like that it's librarian focused.
Yeah.
I think maybe they should have um, not chosen to have Fourth Wing and Iron Flame in the way they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
but I don't know how to fix it. Like, I don't think should only have one book been nominated. Should they both have been in the romantasy or the fantasy category? I don't know how to fix it, I guess.
Yeah, well, and like me personally, I wouldn't even consider it really romantasy, at least by my terms, because of like, and this is just my personal thoughts, but because of the way that the romance was written within the story, for me, it could have almost just been a fantasy
Mm-hmm.
book.
I agree.
Um, but so if it were me, if I was a librarian and I was to have my 2 cents, I would probably have put it in the fantasy category
I think I would too.
because yeah, and
Yeah.
there's so many other romantasy books also anyways, but I mean it was such a popular book, so I mean I have to kind of give it to him in that regard as far as like, it was super popular, super talked about. I'm sure it's probably checked out quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
So,
had to have been. Had to have been.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would have put for me personally, and I don't like if our listeners disagree, please let us know. Like we're obviously not the end all be all for this, but
Yeah.
I think I would pick one of the books, and I would have put one of those books into the fantasy category
Mhm.
because having two books is it's just tough for
Mhm.
other authors to get recognition. And I
Yeah.
think that's what the awards should be about, is like getting to see authors that maybe you didn't know were around.
Mhm.
And like we were talking about the romance books, we had never read any of the romance books that were
Yeah.
nominated, and I put all of them on my TBR list. That's what I think awards should be, is like
Mhm.
getting recognition to authors who work really hard and write really good books. And so yeah, Fourth Wing was super popular. I think it should have been in the awards, but maybe not both.
Mhm.
And definitely, I don't think the romantasy either. I agree with you on that, because I don't think romance is the main plot of the
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. Totally. Well,
And
and
I know
like,
we probably are the small camp in this category, because I think
yeah.
Goodreads put it in romantasy and like
Listen, we've been reading for a while. I think we
yeah,
have boots in the
we do.
boots on the ground.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Um
I was just going to try to compare it to Akatar, because for me, Akatar
mhm.
is romantasy, because yeah, there is a subplot of like, I'm not going to be spoiler, but there's a bunch of stuff that happens in Akatar that's not romance. But the
Right.
main thing in Akatar and all the sequels is the romance of the main character with
Right.
the the male lead.
Mhm.
And that's like the number one thing that everybody cares about. With
Mhm.
Fourth Wing, at least for me, it was not the relationship between the main character and the male lead. It was about the stuff that was going on, and then the romance
Mhm.
was like B plot. It was a pretty strong B
Mhm.
plot, because there was a lot of content about it, but it was still a B plot to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with that. And it reminds me of like other quote unquote like romantasies that I've read where it's almost like romance is leading the book, but there's other like things happening that are fantasy, or it's in like a fantasy setting. That's what I think when I think of romantasy, is
Yeah,
it's romance in a fantasy setting. It's not fantasy with a little bit of romance.
yeah,
It's not, Dungeons and Dragons with the romance. It's romance and they're in a Dungeons and Dragons type of scenario,
yep,
So
yep.
that's how I read it. And honestly, I probably, if I would have had to pick one of them, I would have just done Fourth Wing, the first one.
Hmm.
But and I was gonna say, there's a lot of authors out there that maybe they only had one book out of their series that was released in that year. So
Right, that's true. Yeah,
how do you compete with someone with another author that's, putting out multiple books in the same genre out in one year? And then, I mean, I guess, I mean, it is what it is. Like,
yeah.
I don't want like to, upset authors or anything, but
No. Well, I'll
it's
say
just,
this, like, so I love the Goodreads Choice Awards. I think it's,
Mhm.
I try to read as many as I can in my favorite categories because I think it's really fun that it's people
Mhm.
inspired, like the people get to vote for it. But every year, Stephen King writes a book, and every
Mhm.
year it's in the horror category, and it's almost always the winner. And I'm so sick and tired of it. Like, yeah, Stephen King, I love him. I've got like 70 of his books. I've read almost
Mhm.
everything he's written. Dude, like, stop letting them put your books in. Let other horror authors have
Mhm.
this win. And I don't think he won the last 2 years. So I think
Yeah.
maybe people are getting wise to it, but like, just it's not for you, bro. You're in a different plane, and like your
Right.
books are good, but damn it, there are some good horror out there that never get a chance because it's a Stephen King book and everybody just votes for
Right.
it, and because it's got the name attached to it. So I get
Mhm.
frustrated with things like that, and I feel like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame was kind of like that
Yeah, I
for this year.
agree. Isn't his son also a
Yes,
horror genre
yeah.
writer?
Joe Hill is his name,
Wow,
and he's
that's
really
crazy.
good. In fact, a little bit of a tangent. We're already tangenty to tangential.
Tangenty? Tangential.
uh, but so the first time I picked up a Joe Hill book, it was Nosferatu, which has like a license plate on the cover,
Mhm.
and I didn't know anything about him. I loved the cover. I thought it was such a fun book. It's a Christmas themed horror book, which I just love, holiday horror. And so I bought it and I read the whole book, and I was so obsessed with his writing that I looked him up, and that's when I realized he was Stephen King's son. So I totally read his work without having any idea that I was like reading. Stephen King's like probably in my top three authors, and I
Mhm.
was reading one of his sons without knowing about it. I was just blown away. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome though, because then at least you have like no bias really, like going into it
Yeah, I
reading.
did.
You
Like, I
know.
felt okay. Like, he's actually a good writer. I'm not reading him because I like his dad. Like, I really loved
Mhm.
Nosferatu, and I've read most of his works too. I think he's got a few that I haven't read, but yeah, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how like my mom is with like John Grisham. He always puts
Mhm.
out books like right around her birthday, and like literally that's all she asks for her birthday is a John Grisham book or Christmas or whatever. Like she's like, yeah, I just want this, and then every year because he puts out a new book every year,
Yep. He's
and I
very
mean
prolific.
yeah, so like that'd be like him winning the I don't know thriller mystery genre every time. Like
And he probably
I don't know,
does. I don't look in that category, but I bet you he's in the top few every
yeah,
year.
yeah. I don't read a lot of those types of books, but my mom is a very big mystery thriller book reader. But
Yeah. I like I'll do a little palate cleanser mystery thriller, but it's
mhm,
not my favorite genre. You know, not my main
yeah.
genre. It's a fine genre. It's just not my stick per se. Now, Haley, you have a beekeeping item that I'm really excited to talk about.
So, as our listeners probably know by now, I'm not like the biggest like, oh my gosh, my TBR is so big, but like so over while I was off work, I put together like a comprehensive list. I wrote down all the books on my iPhone, like wanna reads, and then I wrote down all the ones that were like currently on my shelf, and then I combined them all onto my Goodreads. So I have one comprehensive list for my TBR, and I'm officially over 50 books in my TBR. I think I'm at
Let's
like 56.
go. Let's go. Yes.
I know. I'm like a little. I'm like, oh gosh, hesitant to admit that it's gotten that high. But I mean, just all of the books that we've been talking about, and all of the books that are releasing this year, and it's a bunch of my like old authors that I loved and a bunch of the new authors that I've found in the last couple years um, are all like dropping books this year. So I'm like, holy shit, like I have so many books that I have to read. Most of it's romance. There's a lot of sports romance on there,
Mm,
but also a lot of fantasy and fantasy romance type stuff. So, yep, finally broke 50
finally
books.
broke 50. What was it when we started the podcast? Like 9? It
I
was
was like, yeah, I was so little.
it was very small. And I was like, what in the world is happening right now?
Yeah, it was. Well, that's because like I just didn't. I don't think I just kept track. And yeah, just all the hype around all these new books coming out and just
Yeah.
slowly started getting bigger.
It's a good year. It's a good year for book releases.
Yeah,
Like
it's a
there,
very good year.
I remember when we did our episode, I was having to like really trim down what to put. And the
Hmm.
book that I'm reading now is one that I was going to put on my list, but I just had so many other books I want to talk about that I didn't put it on. But
Hmm.
it's good. So yeah, there's just so much happening in the book world right now.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's
It's
a lot.
exciting though.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of the reading year, the
Hmm.
main topic for our episode today is giving each other updates on our reading goals, which we didn't really announce when we started the podcast because we were like a couple weeks into January when we started. So we didn't really talk
Hmm.
about our reading goals on the pod per se, but we both have reading goals that we're trying to accomplish for this year. And we thought we would give an
Hmm.
update on the good, the bad, and the ugly on where we're at with our reading goals.
Yes.
So we each have our goals to share and our status update. Do you want to just go back and forth like we usually do?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Do you want to start with yours?
Sure. So my first reading goal, I so one of my first reading goals for this year is I wanted to get out of like only romance genres, and I'm doing a shit job. Just an absolute awful job at this. If anything, I am buying more romance. Because to kind of elaborate on that, I went into this year being like, I really want to read, more like thrillers, because I do enjoy a good thriller every once in a while. I think one of the ones that I read like years back was called Malevolent, by Jean or Jana De Leon. It was a very good book.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so and it's not a bad genre. I like things like Law and Order and like Criminal Minds and stuff. So like that type of stuff is Jana De Leon is the author, and I want to also started reading like historical
mm.
fiction, and I kind of wanted to dabble a bit more into the fantasy stuff, but I don't know what it is lately. I've just been reading the crap out of like shorter romance, kind of like The Comeback and Fumbled and Fangirl Down by Tessa Bates, like, just those
Yeah.
types of books. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've just been not, not, not reading romance.
I wonder if I mean, you've been pretty busy the last
Hmm.
few bit, and I feel like when I'm really busy, which is going to be the next month probably, that's what I tend to go for too, is like the shorter, lighter, not like
Hmm.
I have to remember 15 characters' names and the
Yeah.
world and the village that everybody's from. Like that's
Hmm.
really taxing. And when your like non-reading life is super busy, then I think it I think that's the kind of books that I tend to go for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And also like just the oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. No. What was I gonna say? Um, it'll come back to me. It's not important. But yeah, just I've been trying to get out of not only reading romance, but I was gonna say I've tried not to read series, and it seems like there's been a lot of books
Mm,
coming out where they're like the beginning to a series.
yeah.
And that's like one of my rules is like don't start series without it being a completed series, because I cannot I have a it's not that I can't, I just have a really hard time jumping back into a series when it's been like a year or so of waiting um between books. So it is
I
what it
get
is
that.
though.
I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so winter for me, like the winter months are
Mhm.
where I love fantasy because like I'm cold and inside and there's nothing to do but
Mhm.
read with a hot beverage, which is the best way in my opinion to read. And so
Yeah.
like deep, large fantasies are always like my favorite ones for this time of year. But now
Mhm.
that like we hit 70 degrees this whole week basically,
Oh wow.
and now I'm like I'm ready to go read I have a hammock that I take out to the river by our house, and I read in the
Hmm.
hammock, and that's when I'm reading like the light, fun,
Yep.
summer-ish books. So I think there's definitely going to be a transition for me to read more like, the casual books rather than
Hmm.
like the Throne of Glass series is a pretty intense
Right.
series, and
Oh yeah.
so working my way through that. But yeah, definitely we'll start shifting in some nice, more cozier, lighter books.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. What's your first reading goal?
Yeah. So my first goal is to read more diversely, which is a goal I have set this every year since I started rereading again in 2020 during the pandemic, because I realized that basically before 2020 I was reading, all my authors were pretty much male and white and straight, and
Mm.
I thought this is not a good representation of the author world. I need to be able to read more diversely. And so every year I set a goal to read at least 50% of my books should come from authors of color. And I try
Hmm.
to get a good amount of authors. I don't have a specific number, but I try to get a lot of authors from the LGBTQ community. And so far, it's been really good this year, mostly because after so many years of doing it, I've discovered just so many amazing authors that just happen to be of color. And now they're like my favorite authors to read. And that's what I've been reading basically the whole year. And so,
Hmm.
I've got my Excel sheet pulled up, and I have 72% of my authors are people of color.
Wow.
40% are LGBTQIA plus, and I have six. I don't know why that's not a percentage. I got to fix that. I have six trans author books,
Oh, nice.
and so yeah, it's just good. It's something that I'm really, and like I've just become a fan of so many authors by forcing myself to read more diversely, and it's frustrating that the book industry still kind of focuses on white straight men for the most part, like the Stephen Kings of the world. And so
Hmm.
it's been one of my favorite things to do every year, and I love just learning, love finding new authors and reading their experiences.
Yeah, that's really awesome though. And honestly, like, I mean, I feel like it's helpful to do things like, oh, it's whatever history month, or
Yeah, yeah,
it's
exactly.
like women's history month, and you set a, like, oh, I'm gonna read more women. Like for instance, I never would have come across Alexa Martin's books if we hadn't done like let's read some POC for Black History Month,
Hmm.
um so, and I'm so glad that because I love the way she writes and I love her books. I think that they're fantastic. So um yeah, I feel like it's really good to branch out, and
Yeah,
that's really cool that that's like a goal.
yeah. Oh, it's my number one goal every year, and I've definitely
Yeah.
learned so much from it. And it's good as a reader to just look every once in a while of like, who am I reading a lot of? Who am I buying a
Hmm.
lot of too? Like, am I buying only white, straight
Yeah.
male authors? And
Hmm.
if you are, then like, okay, I should buy, an author that's not a white, straight male,
Yeah.
whatever that
Well,
is.
yeah, and then that could be said also for the opposite. And like for me, I
Hmm.
almost read little to no male authors at all.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so I could probably stand to read, a couple
Well, and especially
male
like
authors.
you're such a romance reader, and the male
Yeah.
romance writers are few and far between. And so,
Yeah.
getting to celebrate them too is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's really cool though.
Yeah. It's a good goal.
Hmm.
Haley, what is your second book or second goal?
Yeah. My second goal is to read more tangible books, like, more physical copies.
Good for you.
And I'm killing it. Um, I actually, like a few weeks ago, I stopped when I went on my Barnes and Noble shopping spree. Which I the only reason why I do go to Barnes and Noble is because we really don't have a lot of indie bookstores near me, and the
Yeah.
ones we do have are very like overwhelming for me physically. They're just very small and like compact, and I get so claustrophobic. So,
Mm.
um, and there's like something very overwhelming to me about like being in a very small space with like all these things to choose from. So that's just like a me thing. But the I've been like buying so many tangible books, and honestly, what's kind of helped too is for me personally, it's a lot more fun to post on my like Bookstagram the physical copies,
Yeah.
um, because I'm not like having to like edit a photo to like or do um like a what the hell are those called? Not a template, but what the hell is that called? Like a digital art. There we go.
Mm.
Of like this is what I'm reading, or like this is the book that I read, which I will sometimes do for books that I've read, like either on iBooks or on my Kindle. I will do like a little picture of the Kindle or like a little digital art type thing, and then I'll crop the uh, front of the book onto that picture. But if I have a like physical, tangible copy, then I can just take a picture of it, and also I forgot how good it is to or how good it feels to like have a physical copy in your hand and just sit down and read.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. There's something nostalgic about it. There's nothing like it. So yeah,
I
that's
agree.
and I just bought two more books. One I'm so bad. I need to stop. But the first one is Need Me by Tessa Bailey, and the other one is Everything for You by Chloe Leese. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to get into those.
Yeah. I applaud you for reading more tangible books because I really miss reading physical books. That's like the one thing that I loved was
Mhm.
going to a bookstore, picking out books. Every time I travel somewhere, I go to a bookstore
Mhm.
and I try to buy a book. But it's so hard for me to read a physical book now that I'm like, oh my God. And the Ice Planet Barbarians I bought physical. So I'm going to read that one
Mhm.
as a physical book and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I applaud you for doing the tangible because yeah, it's so nice like having a bookshelf and smelling books and feeling books.
Yeah,
Like there's nothing like holding the actual book in your hand for sure.
yeah. Well, and where is my? I bought a bookmark too, and it's really nice and really
Oh,
cool.
it is
I'm
nice.
currently showing it, but
Dang.
it's like an acrylic with like gold foil. Um, and like some like pinky purple swirls in it. It has a gold tassel. It's really really nice. Um, but yeah, I bought it when I picked up some other books. But yeah,
I love a
you know, just
bookmark.
helps.
I love a
Yes,
bookmark.
but yeah. What's your second goal?
Yeah, so my second goal is kind of related to the first one. So I reading more diversely I've been doing for a while now, but one of the things that I really want to do more is to read books from other countries and specifically translated books from other countries. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily saying that like every book that I read from a different country needs to be translated because there's quite a few who write in English that live in other countries, but um, I just realized I've read a few translated books over the years that I've really loved, especially from China. There's a series called A Hero Undone, I think is what it's called. And it's kind of like this classic, like martial arts story. And I just absolutely loved it. And it
Mm-hmm.
made me think like there's so many good books out there that don't get represented in America because they don't come from American authors or like they never get translated or it takes them 10, 20 years to get translated sometimes. And so I want to try to read more translated books to see what's out there. And this year I set a goal for myself to do one a month. So that'd be 12 for the whole year. And I'm not doing great. I've read one. My very first book this year was called Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sawadi. And it was It was translated from Arabic. It was a super good book. I loved it. It was amazing. And then I didn't read a single translated book until the one I'm reading right now, which was
Mm-hmm.
translated from Korean. So I've improved by
Mm-hmm.
one book, but we're at the end of March and I've only read one and a half, I guess, books. So I'm a little bit behind on that. So I want to try to improve on that. But one of my like lifelong long-term reading goals is to read at least one book from every country, which is going to take a
Hmm.
super long time. But um,
Yeah,
I love reading
that's
books
really
from different areas, and like it's so interesting to hear like the culture differences of like
cool. Hmm.
an American versus someone who lives in Baghdad, for example, or Korea, for example. Um,
Hmm.
it's just fun to see that and read it. So that's one of my goals that I need to work on, but I need to get better at.
Yeah, well, that's really cool though, and I feel like that's something that not everyone really even thinks about, right? Because like not everyone's going like, oh yeah, I need to read a translated book because we don't think about the fact that other, or at least consciously for me anyways, like I'm not consciously being like my books that I'm reading are in English first. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And I'd also be interested to know like the like translation aspects of the books, like because I'm such a linguistics nerd. I
Yeah.
love languages. That's something fun fact about me is um, I took Spanish obviously in high school because like we had to, but also because I love languages. And then I took French in college, a quarter is a year's worth of French packed into a quarter of college. There we go.
Wow.
And I loved it. I wish I would have stuck with it because not that I wasn't good at it. I was just trying to graduate early, and that would have not happened had I taken the full course.
Yeah.
But and but yeah, I just love I love things like idiomatic expressions, things that are almost like untranslatable in other languages, and then when they translate them into English, it's like this weird mishmash of English that you're like,
Hmm.
this doesn't make any sense, but in that other language, it totally makes sense, and then you have to kind of like piece together the words to make it make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know I'd be interested to know like what their processes are to figure out like, well, the author said the sky is blue, but in the language it's blue sky. You know what I mean, like that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I'd be interested to know like what that process is like and how fun that would be to read through someone else's language and be like, how do you want me to translate this? You know, because I can only imagine that there's something where the author's like, no, I mean this, and then you have to find out the best words in English
Hmm.
to put that concept into.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really
Yeah.
cool though. That's really cool though. I like that. That's a goal.
Yeah. It's really fun. And I think the hard part is like if you look for translated books, which I try
Mm-hmm.
to do, obviously, for the goal,
Mm-hmm.
what you end up with is like translated books in every genre. And I don't necessarily want to read a translated like historical fiction. It's not really, I'm not a huge historical fiction fan. So I'm not going to pick
Right.
up a translated historical fiction or a translated like, some other genre, like a translated mystery. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be like
Yeah.
dragged to. So like you have to find a translated book in a genre that you like, which makes it
Yeah.
harder. And I think that's like the biggest challenge is like, okay, I'm looking for a translated book, but it needs to be in my wheelhouse that I want to read. And so
Hmm.
that's been like the biggest struggle. But
Yeah. I bet.
I did want to mention, and I have not mentioned R.F. Kuang yet on this episode, but
Hmm.
Babel, the premise of Babel is based on like the differences in words that are translated between countries. Like that's how the
Hmm.
magic system works.
Hmm.
So Haley, I think you should read Babel. Except
I
it's a
don't.
gigantic book, and
Is it
there's no
how many?
romance at all.
How many pages is it?
Hold on, I got it on my shelf. It's a beefy boy. It's
Oh gosh.
let me see. It
Yeah. It looks.
is the
It doesn't look as thick as Crescent City. So
oh, I don't think it's Crescent City. It
okay.
is 544, so not terrible.
Not. That's not too bad. Honestly, that's about how many pages some of the books that I have read recently were. Um, I might. I'll put it on my TBR.
I
and
yeah,
I've
I
heard
think
really good things about it.
you would really like the magic system. I don't
Hmm.
know if the plot of the story is your jam, but the
Hmm.
way the magic works is they write the English translation of a different language on like a piece of
Hmm.
silver, and that is what makes like their technology work, is
Oh,
like the
interesting.
difference of the translated words. And it was really really cool. Minor spoilers,
That
I
is,
guess. Minor spoilers for Babel. Sorry, I'm saying this after you've listened to it. I don't think I'm giving too much away. I think that's pretty
yeah. I
apparent when you
mean,
hear about the book. But
yeah.
yeah, so you would like it for that aspect. I don't know. It's definitely
Mhm.
not a book you would normally go for, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
I've seen it though, and because when we were talking about all of that author's books
Hmm.
in a last episode, I can't remember which one it was, but I was like, wow, these books sound really interesting.
Yeah, he's a really good
So
writer.
honestly, I might, I might, I'll put it on my TBR,
Yeah,
but
cool.
for sure.
Okay, so I just did one. So what's your next reading goal, Haley?
Yeah, so my next reading goal, I kind of wanted to talk about my Goodreads goal because I'm doing a Goodreads challenge. And I don't know if it's like a everyone kind of does their own reading challenge or like if it's like a thing that happens, but I guess like every year they do like a reading challenge, and my reading challenge for myself this year is to read 101 books.
That's a great goal.
Yeah, last year I think my goal was to read like 50 books. And mind you, I had like just started getting into reading again last year. Um, and well, 2022, end of 2022, into 2023. And then I think I read like 47 or something. Like I didn't quite make it, but still.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let's just like double the ante and then like up it by one. So yeah, I'm currently sitting at 16 out of 101 books. But I'm, according to Goodreads, I'm 5 books behind schedule, but I'm starting 2 books this week. So
I don't know how they do that though, because like I
yeah,
feel like they just make it to where you're behind all the time.
it feels like I'm constantly behind.
Yeah.
Like in January, February, I was behind by like 5 books, and now it's like you're behind by 5 books again. And I'm like, okay, well, I've read like, I feel like 16 books is a lot of books to have read in 3 months.
16 books is a lot, I would say.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think I'm doing pretty well. I feel like in January, again, no tea, no shade, because I feel like I kind of diss on Fourth Wing a little bit. But no tea, no shade. But Iron Flame, reading that book really put me into a huge reading slump
Yeah.
in January, and it took up so much of my reading time in January because it was such a lengthy read, um, a lengthy, slow read for me that like I kept having to like pause it and then try to get back into it and then pause it and then get back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So um that really cut into my like overall time of being like, okay, I can read like 2 books this week and you know what I mean, to stay on track. So yeah.
So that's why so I have Goodreads, but I don't do the reading challenge because of the exact thing you described.
Mm,
Because I would be so focused on like, okay, I need to read this many books this year, and
mm-hmm,
I would not pick up a big book because I'd be like,
mm-hmm,
oh, well, if this book is like whatever Iron Flames, whatever 800 and some odd pages, like, well, that's only one book. It's gonna take me a while to read it. That's gonna put me behind. So I'm gonna
yeah,
pick up a smaller book instead. And
mm-hmm,
so I actually stopped. I don't track I mean, I have an Excel sheet that tells me the number, but I don't actually
mm-hmm.
look at the number very often because I got into my head too much about it and was like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't. I got to read a 200-page book so that I'm
Yeah,
a better reader by this
right,
arbitrary system that I'm implementing myself, you know?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you read like 100-page books all the time, you're like, yeah, piece of cake, no big deal.
Yeah. Well, so I just looked because I haven't actually kept track, but so I've read 25 official books, but
Oh.
that's including 5 comic books and
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 novellas. So like
Okay.
it looks like I've read a lot, and like I still think like
Mm-hmm.
I've read 16 like regular traditional books. So that's like, we're about at the
Mm-hmm.
same level with that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I read a lot of comics, which are 25 pages maybe. And so like
Mm-hmm.
it looks like my numbers amplified, but really I'm just reading, these kind of smaller books. I love novellas. I love like shorter books that compress the story down. And so like it's hard to compare that in a lot of ways. And so that's kind of why I stopped doing the Goodreads and tracking my numbering, just because, you know,
Yeah.
it makes it look like I'm reading a shit ton when I'm actually reading just about the same as everybody else does.
Yeah, that's true. And honestly, at least as far as like statistically speaking, right? Like we're above the curve anyways because
That's so
most
true.
people read, maybe 5 books in a year
Yeah.
or 3 books in a year or one book in a year. So,
I think
um,
I think if you read one book a year in the United States, you're
yeah.
at like the 50th percentile of people
Yeah.
who read, which is crazy. Like one book a year
Yeah.
and you're at the 50th
One
percentile.
book. Yeah.
But
That's
hey,
so crazy to think about.
yeah. And for those listeners who maybe read one book a year, we love you. Congratulations.
Yeah,
You're in the top 50% of readers. Like that's amazing.
exactly.
You can't tell people that you're a reader. People can't say you're not a reader because you're in the top 50%. Like if you read one book a year, you're a reader. Congratulations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. You are a reader.
Yeah.
If you read any books at all, ever,
Yeah.
you are a reader.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good goal. I really like the 101. I think that's a good number. I like that it's not round. I don't know why. I think that's nice that it's not a round
Yeah.
number. I think that's really cool.
It made me think of like 101
Yeah,
Dalmatians. I think that's
exactly.
really cool, to be quite honest.
Woo. Hell yeah.
Yes. What is your, are we on number 3?
Round number
Yes. What
3.
is your third one, Cody?
So another goal that I wanted to do is I have been kind of off and on short story collections before. Sometimes I love them, sometimes I hate them. Like, well, I hate's a strong word, but I don't read them very often. I feel like short stories kind of get overlooked a lot, and I actually love short stories, like just like novellas. If you can convey a story in like 10 pages versus 300, I am super interested.
Mhm.
And if I'm thinking about short stories after I've read them, that means it's a really great story. And there's been so many good short stories that I've read. By like Stephen King comes to mind again. He writes so many good short stories that I've kept with throughout the years. And so I wanted to read more short stories this year. And I set another goal that I think is a little over optimistic, but I want to try to read 12 short story collections over the year. And I have currently read 3. So I'm on track with that one, which is good. I might lessen it just a little bit because they take me longer to read. I try to read like one story a day
Mhm.
with short stories because I feel like you want to like simmer in the story instead of just trying to read it like a novel. And so I think I might try to drop it a little bit, but I have really enjoyed the short story collections that I've read this year so far. I think I've mentioned them both on the podcast, or all 3 on the podcast. And yeah, it's really good. I got one that's coming up too that I'm really excited about. That's one of my holds. So it's good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't, what like constitutes a short story?
You know, that's a great question. I think it has to be less than 8,000 words, maybe,
Oh, wow.
which could be, I
Okay.
think, maybe 50 pages can be 8,000 words, something like that. Um,
Okay.
if the Best American series that I mentioned earlier in the
Mhm.
pod, I can't remember what episode it was. He has like a designation where it has to be less than so many for him to count it as a short story. And I don't know if
Oh,
like that's the standard, but I think it's
okay.
around that. Like I think the longest short story I've read is probably about 50 pages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Because then
because
a
I was
novella is
like,
like, I think a novellas are like 70 to like 150 maybe.
yeah, yeah, because I feel like every novella that I've read has been like in the back of a book already. Like,
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like they put it at the end,
hmm.
almost as like instead of an epilogue, they'll just put like a novella.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I
but
think
yeah,
Ice Planet Barbarians has, right? Didn't we see that the other day?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yep.
excited for that.
I am excited for that as well. The Night and Its Moon by Piper CJ, I believe in, and maybe it was just in one of the special editions because I did buy the Barnes and Noble exclusive edition. It had a novella in the back, and I think I don't know if she did that with all of her books, so I don't want to say if she did that with all of her books or maybe it was just a special edition sort of thing. But I think novellas and short stories are really cool. I don't know if I've actually ever read, at least in my adulthood, I don't think I've ever read a short story.
Yeah.
Sure, I did when I was younger, but
Yeah. Part of it too is that I want to write a short story this year. So that's one of my
mm,
non-reading goals is to write and submit a short story to be published in
hmm
a magazine, which it
right.
probably won't get published, but just to write it and send it out, I think is going to be really fun. So
Mhm.
that's, I'm kind of inspiring myself to read the short story medium to help inspire my writing a little bit,
Yeah.
which I
Well,
haven't
and you
wrote a
can
single
always get
page.
published.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's true. That's true. I
what
could.
counts is that you're thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Hailey, is this your last one?
Yeah, so my last reading goal, so I know I talked more about my long-term year goal previously, but I also have a March TBR. It's currently sitting at 12 books. Um, Whoops, I totally put in the wrong numbers in the notes, so it
Uh-oh.
should be 12. Um, but so right now I'm sitting at 6 out of 12. So I'm approximately halfway through my March TBR list,
That's pretty good.
which is
You know,
cool.
you're
Yeah.
like barely over halfway, technically. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing really well. And honestly, taking the couple days off that like I really needed anyways for my mental health.
yeah.
Been exhausted. Um, but those extra like couple days to just sit down and like relax and just kind of read like really helped. And it also helps when you have really good books to read as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so my next two books that I think I'll start, obviously outside of Ice Planet Barbarians, will be Intercepted and The Partner Plot. At least that's what I'm thinking. And Intercepted is also by Alexa Martin.
Oh, is it?
It's part of that. Okay.
Oh, she's the one that did the NFL. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the Fumbled book that I mentioned in the beginning, I don't know if it's considered a series, but it's kind of like a collection of like single, what's that word? Like they they're a series, but each book is its own couple and their story, but they're
Oh,
all kind of like
yeah.
the same kind of like umbrella
Yeah. What are they
of,
called? Like,
I don't know.
they're kind of like spin-offs, but spin-off doesn't sound right because
Yeah.
like it makes it
Yeah,
sound like, yeah, I don't know what that's called.
yeah, so I just call them collections because, like, to me, it's not really like a series. Like, you don't have to read them in order. Of course, I mean, read them in order if you want to. And I think they are numbered, at least on the
Mm.
iBooks app. I think they're numbered. But yeah, the first one is Intercepted, and then I read the second one, which is Fumbled. And honestly, I don't know if there's any characters mentioned in Intercepted that were in Fumbled or any in Fumbled that are mentioned in the next books. Um, but it felt like a standalone romance novel. So
Huh.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm excited. And then obviously the partner plot, um,
Woo.
as we mentioned before, I'm excited to read that one too.
Yay. That sounds great. Do you have a specific order of the 12 or is it just any 12?
Um,
Or like, you've picked your 12 and now you'll read them in any order? Or do you have like a very specific way you're going about it?
yeah. So I picked them. I picked them kind of based off of books that I'd already read in February because some of them. So like, I'll just go down my list, and obviously, like, you don't have to write this down or anything. So listeners, like, take note if you want to. If not, no big deal. So like my one of the books that I read uh, in February was Witches Get Stitches, and then I realized that that was the third book. So now I'm reading first book, which is Wolf Gone Wild, and I know I've mentioned that, and I kind of put it off, but I have started it, and that's second. So I have Fangirl Down, which I've read, Wolf Gone Wild, which I'm reading, kind of, The Partner Plot, which I will be reading, and that's because that was the second one to, oh my gosh, what was the first one?
Neighbor
Next
Favor.
Door, Neighbor Favor.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Lore of the Wilds, which was just one. The book had come out in March, so I was like, I'm gonna read this book, and then I bought the book, or maybe it came out in February.
I think it came out in
Shit, no,
February. I think you're right.
It did come out
Yeah.
in February.
I was recommended
bought
that
it-
book, by the way. My Kobo
really?
was like, hey, you should read Lord of the Wilds. And I was like, wait, I know somebody who read this book.
It's good. I really liked it, and I think I'm pretty sure that the author confirmed that it is going to be a series.
Oh,
so
cool.
I think that there will be a second book coming out probably eventually. Don't know when, but yeah. Lord of the Wilds. I want to go back to God Killer because I started it and I kind of put it off to read a few different books just because it wasn't. I don't know if I'm necessarily a mood reader or not, but I've noticed that like sometimes when I'm in the mood for fantasy, I'll read fantasy. Sometimes, and I've been really big on like sports romances lately. So, but yeah, and then because I want to read God Killer, and I think Sunbringer, which is the second book in the series, is coming out this month. I want to be reading after that, and then like Don't Hex and Drive, which is I think the second one in the Witches Get Stitches series, and then the next one. So basically, like my list is just kind of like either finishing a series or starting a book that was released either this month or in the month of February that I wasn't able to read in February.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just that's I don't know. Yeah, it's I don't know if I want to continue on, but I guess I will for just because it's gonna bother me if I don't. Always practice safe hex, and then
Wait,
come back.
I'm sorry. The title is Always Practice Safe Hex.
Always practice safe hex.
That's such a good title. Oh my gosh, I love that.
It is. It is. It's so all of her titles, if any of our listeners go look up, and I believe the author is Juliet Cross. All of the titles of this series are so good. Wolf Gone Wild, freaking Don't Hex and Drive,
I do.
and then like
too.
Always Practice Safe Hex, Witches Gone Wild. Like they're just so cute. I love them. And they're a paranormal romance series. But yeah, and then The Comeback, which I read, Fumbled, which I read, and then Intercepted, which I will be reading, and then The Cupcake Cottage, which I read.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it. That's good. I don't do that at all. Like if you asked me what I was going to read next, it'd be pretty sporadic at any given time. Like I'll just be like, well, I'm going to read something else completely different than what I would expect. And it makes my sister, who listens to this podcast, shout out to my sister. She gets so frustrated because she'll recommend a book to me and it'll take me months to get to it because I'm like, she'll recommend like, I don't know. I'm trying to remember the last book she recommended to me, but if it's like not in the space that I want to be reading, I'll just be like, okay, I'll get to it eventually. And then like 8 months later, hey, I finally read this book that you recommended to me.
Yeah. See, my like type A brain, I don't know if that's like a type A thing, but I made a list and I was like, okay, I'm going to stick to this list. And then I just like went down and like started writing down books and like I said before, like there literally so many of them are just books in the same series but I just want to finish the series. Like it's just so yeah.
Wow. That's really good.
Yep.
That's really good.
Yep.
I love that.
Oh, yeah. What's your last reading goal?
Yeah. So my last reading goal is to read more romance. And I put that I was doing a good job in my notes, in our notes for today. And I'm going to call BS on that because I'm actually not doing very good. I think it was because I was like, like last week when I was thinking about the notes, I was starting Partner Plot and I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. Like getting into more romance. And then I didn't even like give it a chance. So yeah, I haven't really read that much more romance than I normally do. It's if I look at my chart on my spreadsheet, I've read 4% of my books have been romance, which I think
Wow.
is about the same percentage that I have throughout the last few years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to kind of bump it up a little bit because we are sort of a romance book podcast. I would say that we kind of have a
Mm-hmm.
romance leaning bent to us. And there's a lot of good romance out there that I just don't know about, especially like Ice Planet Barbarians being a good example. Like romance that's not the typical per se, fall in love story. Like Akatar, the romantasy. I'm a big fan of the romantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe if would you consider Throne of Glass romantasy?
I don't
I don't
know.
think I
I think
would.
I would almost consider it
Yeah,
fantasy because it's so uh I feel like the romance is almost secondary to what's actually going on.
I would agree. I think if we're going to make Fourth Wing not romantasy, then I think
Yeah,
Throne of Glass would be the same.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
so yeah, like I've read maybe like more romance, like B plot books, but not
Hmm.
head romance, like where romance is the main plot,
Right.
outside of a few. And so I want to continue to do that and improve on it. Like I think Partner Plot, I'm definitely going to read it at some point this year. So, when I'm
Hmm.
ready for that light casual romance, I think I'll definitely get into it. I think I'm going to love the Ice Planet Barbarian series. We're talking about it like every 2 seconds this episode, I feel like, but
Yeah.
there's,
We're just really excited, I think,
yeah,
to get into it.
there's like 5 books in that series, I think, and they all sound really good to me. So I'm kind of
Mhm.
excited to take that. And I think I'm going to try to read a little bit more romantasy that's not like Akatar is such a big category,
Mhm.
and Fourth Wing is such a big category. So I think I'm going to try to read more romantasy that's like not Sarah J. Maas or Rebecca Yarros to like
Right.
really see the other authors that are in the category.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I'm going to try to push myself a little bit more on the romance part of it for
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I highly support that.
Woo. Yeah. Got to get more. What's our five? Our Honeyed Frenzy. Got to get more Honeyed Frenzy books in.
Yeah.
Which I do have the sequel to That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon came up, and I had to push it back
Mm.
because I already have 2 books on hold. But that
Mm.
book, I think the second one's called. Let me look real quick because it's a really funny title. Hold on.
I love funny titles. I love when authors do like play on words and that sort of thing. It just makes me happy. Like, not every book needs to have this like crazy, you know, it's just like Iron Flame or,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
or I'm picking on Iron Flame in that series so much today. I feel so bad.
We're praising Ice Planet
I
Barbarians and we're
know.
shitting on Fourth Wings.
I'm sorry to our listeners if that's your jam.
Yeah, like I mean, I will say this: I liked Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we both liked Fourth Wing, and we read it
Hmm.
like we did kind of like a book club thing with
Yes.
us two and another friend. And then I liked Iron Flame, and you and the other person that we did the book club with, who also listens to the
Hmm.
book. Shout out to him. Listens to the
Hmm.
podcast. I keep saying book instead of podcast too. You guys were not super into Iron Flame, but I liked
Yeah.
it. I thought it was good. It's not my
Uh,
favorite book in the world, but I thought it was good.
I think I was just so excited for the action and
Yeah,
the story.
yeah.
I just
The
wasn't.
first part of Iron Flame is like an adventure
Yeah.
for sure.
Hmm.
Like it's you got to get through it. So the book I was looking for is That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf.
I love that. That's amazing. 10 out of 10.
And then the third book is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. So
Oh,
not as like
yeah.
funny, but Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf sounds
That's
so
amazing.
good.
They're gonna find that. Listen, in like 50 years from now, they're gonna find that text in some like decrepit, like old library, and they're gonna uncover it, and it's gonna be covered in dust, and they're gonna be like, "What was this? What was yeeted?"
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, "This was some like fantasy romance, like."
Yes. It's gonna have like a little
uh,
asterisk to explain what yeeted meant.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's gonna be in a museum. Just
Nice. Oh, yeah,
Our ancestors before us.
exactly.
Yeeted love potions.
Yeeted. Yep.
I love that
I do
though.
too. I can't wait to read it.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's my last goal is one I want to improve on for sure is to get more romance in.
It's a good goal.
Yeah. All right. Haley, is there anything else you want to mention?
No.
Yeah. We've been cranking for a while, so yeah, we did good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
Well, thanks so much for listening as always. If you have reader goals that you want to share, we have an email. It's
Yeah.
booksandbeespod@gmail.com. We have an Instagram, which is at booksandthebeespod. Please go follow us on Instagram. Haley, do you want to give a shout out to your Bookstagram page?
Yeah, so my Bookstagram page is Hales Book Haven. All one word, Hails is the first part. Um, yeah, it's my
Yay.
Bookstagram. Feel free. I post puppy pictures there.
There you go. Yeah, go see the puppy pictures. My Instagram is Cody_Books and Bees Pod, which I promise to post more. I have literally one post from like a month ago, but I will post more. So yeah, give us a follow there. If you haven't yet, give us a review on your podcast app of choice. We really love the reviews.
Mhm.
It does help us get more viewers and eventually, hopefully, get some monetization going for the podcast so that we can do more
Yeah.
fun things, which would be really exciting. And I want to give a shout out to the American Indie for the song Rendezvous. Great song. Love it. It still is our intro and outro for our podcast.
Yes.
It's a great time when I edit it to listen to it because I listen to the whole thing because it's such a good song. So thanks to them. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll close us out. We hope you enjoyed this literary journey as much as we did. If you're buzzing with excitement, don't forget to subscribe, email us, and leave a Hive 5-worthy review on your podcast listening app. Until next time, happy reading, and may your shelves be filled with tales as enchanting as a blooming garden. Keep the buzz alive, and we'll catch you in the next chapter. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.